Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good double.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
So now we're going to move on to one of our spoiler reviews of the week, which is One Night in Miami, which is available on Amazon Prime, directed by Regina King, first time she's directing a film, and it's the screenplay was written by Kemp Powers. If that name sounds familiar, he also co-wrote the script for Soul on for Pixar. That's available on Disney Plus. So let's dive into this. Ernesto, what were your thoughts on One Night in Miami?
I would say I think I walked into it wanting more. Like when I originally watched it, like I felt like I was gonna get more, and it felt very similar to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in that it's a stage adaptation translated into a film.
Yeah.
You know, because most of the movie takes place. There's like maybe three different settings, maybe four. Like some very small areas that they use. You know, you get like a little bit of the stage. Mainly the primary of the movie took place in the hotel.
Yeah.
And on the roof, and also it's all surrounding February 25th, 1964.
Yeah, yep. I think so.
The night that Muhammad Ali beat Sonny Liston and became the heavyweight champion of the world. So then it's kind of hypothesized like, you know, this is all right surrounding around very pivotal points in their life, right when Cassius Clay was going to become Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, you know, thinking that first getting inklings that people are out, that somebody might be out to murder him, you know, and him having to leave the Nation of Islam, Sam Cooke's taking his music pretty much to the next level right around when he released that song. Mm-hmm. And then also Jim Brown deciding to retire from the NFL and go and pursue his acting career.
Yeah.
So it was really, really interesting. I felt like it's kind of on the same level of like Fences, and it's kind of where Fences is for me. Like it's great and I can appreciate it, but I'm not gonna rush back to go watch it immediately. You know what I mean? But I felt like the story was very intriguing. One of the scenes that was great is when Malcolm X is talking to Sam Cooke about his music, and he brings up the Bob Dylan song, and he quotes that Bob Dylan song, and you know he talks about, you know, really making him evaluate himself about his music and where his song lineage from. But the thing about this movie is that it's inspired by true events. Like this is a fictionalized event, like, mm-hmm. you know, that we think, you know, what we think might have happened, because the four of them were reported to be good friends.
Right. And they also were in Miami at the same night for the fight. Right. So that's all true. What happens afterward, it's all fictionalized. We don't know if they did meet up in one locations, but maybe they did. Who knows?
But also that, you know, there's that image of them in the diner, of them all together. Like, that's an actual shot that they recreated.
Oh, okay.
So I found on the Smithsonian did an article on it, and they, you know, in it they kind of break it all down. They show you, hey, this is what happened, this is what fictionalized. They have an image of when they're at the counter. Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay at that point is sitting at the counter with a bow tie. You've got Malcolm X behind the counter taking a photo with them. And then you got us right after he beat Sonny Liston that night. So it's, you know, they kind of break down all that. They give you a link to where you can watch Sam Cooke's song "A Change Is Gonna Come" on YouTube. They talk about they kind of break down each central figure and kind of just really giving you, it's like a nice little history lesson. Like, hey, if you enjoyed the movie, here's a real good history lesson about why this movie is significant. And to be honest, I felt I was like, man, I probably should have read this before I watched the film.
Yeah.
Only because I felt like I would have, like I enjoyed it, but maybe I would have appreciated it more had I had all this prior knowledge. And a lot of it is my fault. You know, I should have known most of it, but I just, I forget. It's been a long time, but
yeah.
But yeah.
You know what? I'm on the same page where you are for the most part. I think I enjoyed this movie a little bit more than Fences.
Yes.
But yeah, it's I feel like it's under the same vein as like what we reviewed last week on My Rainey's Black Bottom, is that because this was originally a stage play, but it also felt like a stage play because you were centralized in one location. I felt like, I feel like, it's human nature for us to compare the films because we just watched My Rainey's Black Bottom. It had that same feel to it. And I felt like that My Rainey had more of a purpose, of a drive to it, to where, like, we know where the end goal was going to be, that being that the song was going to happen. They were in a recording studio, and we were getting to that end goal. Whereas One Night in Miami, I felt like there wasn't really a purpose or a drive to the story. They were just a group of men together of they were high valued, black men in their pretty much the top of their career, at the pinnacle of their, what am I trying to say? Career almost. And so I feel like there was more to go. There's more of a drive for the story for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but the recognition of these men, we all know who they are. Like, these are all recognizable names. And so for me, that was the drive to see, like, what happens when you put these group of men into one room? What are they going to be talking about? And so for me, that was like my interest, my intrigue throughout the whole movie. But other than that, like, it was interesting to see, like you were saying, it's basically the turning point of all of these people in their careers and their life choices. And so that was interesting to kind of feel that. Like, you can feel there was a change coming, and like, hey, I know I'm a football player and I know I'm a singer, but I know we can do more. And Malcolm X was kind of like pushing Sam Cooke, and that was some of the best scenes, like the arguments between Sam Cooke and Malcolm X, where like when they were kind of going head to head on the roof and they continued the conversation in the room. To me, that was where the movie for me kind of picked up. I was like, yeah, this is kind of like the meat of the story of how, like, we are powerful figures in America right now, and we need to use that power for good and to send a message that, that will hopefully allow us to be more, to be more accepted into this society. And we are the catalyst of change, while they were also changing themselves in their career and their lives. So I enjoyed it for that, but I agree with you. There's no rush for me to go back and rewatch this movie. Like, I feel like with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, there's a little bit more there, but it's kind of one of those movies where, yeah, you just kind of want to appreciate, like, the idea of these four men sitting in one room.
Yeah.
That being said, though, the beginning, like, the guy who plays Muhammad Ali, his name is Eli Gorey. He was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
He was great. And like when they were like in the fight, like toward the beginning of the movie, he was moving so fluid. Like, it was almost like Muhammad Ali did. It was really like, holy shit. To me, I was like kind of blown away with that.
I would say they all did. I mean, the guy Kingsley Ben-Adir, who played Malcolm X, like, I've never met Malcolm X, but like based off videos, like, I felt like he had that Malcolm X energy. Like, he did really. Yeah. Jim Brown, I'm not too familiar with, obviously, because I didn't watch sports, and right. I wasn't born around the time he was born.
Right.
But man, Leslie Odom Jr. I thought he was so good, and I just love hearing him sing.
He has a voice, man. Especially, really, I felt like when he was singing that song at the end of the movie, there was a lot there, and I felt it, like, because we were able to see that, like, progression throughout the movie, and him, like, kind of saying, like, yeah, I know that my songs could be great, but ultimately I can never write a song like that. Until the one that he was working on, he was like, it wasn't until I heard Bob Dylan's song where I was like, I need to, yes, this was the turning point for me, where my lyrics need to mean something, and not trying to appease to the white folks is what they were saying. And what Michael X was saying, like, you're just adapting to them. You need to make a statement to where you are in your career, because people are going to listen to you, and you have a voice that anybody would listen to. So you got to make it mean something. And so I really appreciate that aspect of it. But like the beginning where the boxing scene was great. Even I love the scene where they walked in and everyone's expecting to be like, all right, where's the parties at? And Malcolm X is like, no, we're just here trying to have a good time in this room. He's like, you serious? He's like, you got to have snacks, right? You know, something. And he's like, you got beer? He's like, I have ice cream. And he's like, all right, you got chips? He's like, no chips. And he was like, all right, what flavors you got? And he's like, vanilla. And then Sam Cooke's like, the irony. It was
I would say my favorite scene is in the beginning. Is in the beginning when Jim Brown is talking to, like, I guess like a very highly decorated fan. Like,
yes.
Build up, because when you immediately watch it, you're thinking, oh man, it's just kind of like a setup to kind of give you an idea of who Jim Brown is and like kind of introducing you to him. And it wasn't until it's literally one sentence and it changed the entire feel for the entire scene.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Like, he just said it so nonchalantly. And then obviously Jim Brown references not specifically that interaction, but dealing with those type of people, fake white people who are racist, but there's like, they'll just smile right in your face.
Yeah, and like the scene did not build up to that at all.
Not even one little inkling.
And to me, that's like the moment where I'm like, oh, okay, Regina King, this was like, I see where you're coming from. Like, this was the first introduction to the Jim Brown character in the movie, and he's just like, I'm just here to visit a fan. I heard you're great, and I'm not sure where this guy sat like in society. All we knew, he was white and he was rich. But we didn't know like if he was like high politically or in the community, unsure. But either way, he was a fan, and they were just having a conversation, and he was even like, the white guy was even saying, is like, yeah, don't listen to them. They don't know anything. You just keep playing football. And then he was like, hey, I think the granddaughter came and was like, hey, just remember, we need to move this thing. And he was like, oh, that's right. And then he walks in. He's like, and then Jim Brown's like, oh, let me help you. I was like, oh, Jim Brown, we know we don't allow.
Consider you.
Yeah, but we don't allow Negroes in and he used the other term, but he's like, we don't allow Negroes in my house. I'm like, what?
He's like, all right, have a good day. Like, he just walks away.
He walks,
it was
like,
all good.
Oh, silly you know the rules. I'm like, that, like, wow, like that.
For me, that's what I was like. Damn. Like, if nothing else in this film, like, this one scene makes the whole film. At least for me. Like, I felt like like it was just so well crafted, and like that scene like tells you a lot. Like, you get a lot of information in that one scene, and just by that one line, and not even the one line, it's just the way that he delivered that line.
Absolutely. I think there were a lot of good. That was definitely a highlight there, and I think that when they got to the roof, we were getting it as well. The Bob Dylan scene was also a great one. There was the scene where Muhammad Ali and Sam Cooke were both in the car, and they were having a conversation, and Muhammad Ali made a reference saying that look how nobody cared about the 4 little girls who got bombed in Alabama. And I instantly remembered what we saw Selma in that scene. It's the same event. And I was like, whoa, like, I saw that in another movie. It's like you're seeing these little pockets of history. And the fact that I know it's almost like the way that I think because of Marvel, like, here's a shared universe. No, these are real events that happened. Yeah, and they're making reference.
This is our real shared universe.
Exactly. And they made a reference to that. And we actually got to see that and feel that with Ava DuVernay's Selma film. So, like, okay, wow. So, yeah, they're definitely I was very happy that they referenced that. also because we watched the film not too long ago, a couple months ago, and so I was like, oh wow, yeah, so they feel the impact. And he was talking about the meaning of power, and he said power just means a world, means a world where it's just safe to be ourselves. That's what all we want. That's the power that we want, just to be ourselves and not to appease to other people or to be mindful of other things or be scared to go outside. Is like, I can just be myself. And currently Sam Cooke and Jim Brown have the power to do that because he's a singer, because he's a boxer. But what they can do, not all African Americans can do in the 60s. So they need to be the catalyst of change. For them to allow them to do that. And so I thought that was a great scene as well. But all in all, let's talk Oscars now, Ernesto. Like, where do you see this kind of lining up? Like I said before with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I know that we don't have what we're up against, but where can you see this film kind of lining up with in the Oscar category? Like,
Supporting actor.
Mm-hmm.
For Leslie Odom Jr.
Okay.
Well, man, I can't really say. I feel like they all brought something, and that's the thing. Who is the main lead? Like, who's the?
Yeah.
Like, if one of them was going to be up for the lead, who would be considered the lead? Would it be Kingsley Ben-Adir? Because I mean, the movie does end with the quote that Malcolm X gave 2 days before he died, which I thought was another really powerful thing to put in right at the end of the film.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure who's considered as supporting and who would be considered as lead. If I were to guess, I would think that Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali were the leads, and maybe Sam Cooke and Jim Brown were the supporting actors. That's just a guess, but to me, in my opinion, the whole movie focused on these four guys. They're all the leads, in my opinion. So I think Leslie Odom Jr., I believe the song that he wrote for this film is being considered for Oscar talk. So that one I know for sure, and I can see adapted screenplay for this. But other than that, like the screenplay and adapting, unfortunately I don't see Regina King getting like an Oscar nom for directing this film. That's just my opinion. I didn't see a lot of like stuff there to make it like whoa, this was amazing. I like what you said, and I kind of around that vein as well of. This is a movie that should be watched and appreciated, then you can appreciate the film for existing, for the acting, and for the dialogue that they were going back and forth. But after that, there's nothing over the top about this movie that makes me like in awe of it.
Yeah, but then once again, that's not to take away. That doesn't take away from the film. Like,
agreed.
Like, I loved Fences. I think Fences is great, but it's a little long.
Yeah, it is a little long.
It's a little long, but that doesn't take away from how great the movie is. It's just It was a little long for me, and it was too much of a play. There was just something that Ma Rainey's did that was different.
Yeah,
you didn't. Maybe you were in the same amount of spaces, but you didn't notice as much.
Yeah, and like I said, for me, I think it was the story drive. I think. I knew that we were working towards something with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. We were trying to record a song.
Yeah.
We were building to something. Where in this movie we weren't really building to anything, and we were just seeing a moment in these people's lives and how it changed after that night, more or less. So I think it's good. I'll be definitely curious to see where it lands in the Oscar conversation. And
it could be in the conversation.
It's definitely going to be in the conversation. Oh yeah, absolutely. And by next week we should be able to know where it kind of lands. Is it Best Picture material? Is it is we're getting acting nominations or writing nominations, or directing nominations? We'll kind of see where it kind of lands, but I think it's definitely going to be in a conversation. Just to know how many accolades it's going to get. It's kind of it's very similar to like the Five Bloods with Spike Lee. Another movie where I feel like I don't see any rush for me to go back and rewatch this, but I appreciate what this movie is.
Yes, 100% agree with you. Like I felt like both of those films are kind of on the same level.
Yeah. I agree.
They're great,
but
they're
great.
I'm not gonna rush back to rewatch it. But I have.
Right.
But I watched it. it's there. It's not like I hated it.
Right.
And I actually, we thoroughly enjoyed it. Just not going to rush back to rewatch it.
Exactly. So anything else to say before we move on?
No.
That's it. All right. So there you go. That is our spoiler review on One Night in Miami. You can see that on Amazon Prime. Hey, thanks for listening to this edited version of our weekly podcast, Box Office Bingers. If you want to hear the full version of all of our episodes, which includes us discussing entertainment news, movie and TV reviews, guest interviews, and other things we've been watching, you can find us on wherever you listen to podcasts.
And if you want more from us, be sure to hit that subscribe button and find us on our social media channels on Instagram at boxoffice_bingers, Facebook at boxofficebingers, email at boxofficebingers@gmail.com, and Matt, we're even on the Tiki-Takis. We're on the Tiki-Takis at Box Office Bingers. Once again, thanks for listening.